I'm Paul Seaton. Welcome to Legal US Poker Sites, and our feature interview this week is with John Wasnock, the 51-year-old investment consultant from North Bend, Washington, who came second in the World Series of Poker Main Event last year for $6 million. One of poker's greatest achieving underdogs, John has already cashed for plenty in 2026, and we welcome him to the show. John, welcome. It's lovely to see you.
Good to be here. Nice to
Thank
meet
you
you
very
all.
much for joining us. I mean, last year you inspired millions of amateur players with your run to the heads up in the World Series of Poker Main Event, and your patience during the tournament. Everyone talks about the final table, but especially say during days 4 and 5, really kind of helped you make it that way. Do you feel like being a recreational player and an underdog helped you in that position?
Yeah, that tournament is just a marathon. And when you're not getting cards, you'll go in stretches where you're just not playing a hand for a while. And so, patience is huge in those spots and just not trying to force action and make things happen, which can get you in trouble.
Yeah, you certainly had to have a lot of patience, and you navigated with a short stack, thanks to a lot of dedication on your part. You'd played poker for a long time before then, but obviously it ranks as by far your biggest cash. You were very calm and you stuck to your own style, something I really loved. What are your thoughts on kind of feeling underestimated, I guess, as a player? Because when people don't know you, sometimes that can play into your kind of to your benefit, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, you get people that think they can push you around, or you get people that play against you differently if they think you're not confident or an amateur. So, that does play a factor into it, I think.
At the final table, you were not the biggest name by far. Obviously, Michael Mizrachi, who we'll talk about in a bit, went on to win. But there was Leo Margetts, the first female player to make the final table in a very long time. Do you feel like being an underdog at that point may have helped you kind of go under the radar a little bit as the final table and play your game?
I think by the time we got to the final table, I had been on the feature a few days. People got to see a little bit of my play, and but probably not, not too much. So I think that being an amateur, I kind of felt like surprisingly, I just didn't have a lot of pressure on me. I had already achieved, outperformed what, people would have expected. And if I busted, it would have been a great run. So, I honestly, I said this to Jeff in the interview before, at the end of day 8 when we made the final table, that I felt like I was free rolling a little bit. Now, deep down, I still had tremendous, fire to actually finish the job and win it. But if had I busted, it's hard to, poker's poker, and bad things will happen. So you never know. But I wanted to win really bad, and I just kind of tried to maintain an outward, um, calm and just tried not to let it show.
Which it definitely didn't. There's nothing about your final table or indeed your performance up to that point that came across as amateur at all. Now, going into last year, into the main event, you'd won several tournaments, hadn't you? Going into the World Series, you've kind of done the same this year. You've had a very profitable April. You've cashed nearly a dozen times this month alone, the last month alone. Does it feel like the same sort of setup for you that you've come into the series really strong?
Yeah, I've been doing really well lately. I've been doing some of the circuits. I did WSOP Europe. I was down at WSOP Paradise as well, and I've had a decent run the last 6-12 months since the main event. So I'm feeling pretty confident right now. But yeah, last year it was crazy. I mean, I've always um, had to travel to play poker and really only get to play, one or two decent sized tournaments a year. And locally, I had been doing really well, won a couple tournaments. And, in prior years, I'd come down and play some of the smaller events. I'd come down for a week and play a 1500 or what, if I bust, whatever else is left. And I'd only played the main once before about 10 years ago. But yeah, last year I had won 3 tournaments and ran up a decent bankroll and was feeling really confident. And changed my mind to decide I need to play the main this year, and made it happen.
And then you made the very most of it. I mean, it's one of the sort of aspirational dreams of many poker players, isn't it? To turn their recreational hobby into something that could earn them millions. You're someone who's done that. Obviously, I feel like these days it kind of flies in the face of a lot of strategy and coaching in poker, which seems to want players to aspire to be professionals. But as Victoria Corrin said, and many other players since, it's not always the best thing in the world to be a pro. There are some advantages to being an amateur of the game and enjoying it on that level, isn't
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a lot of pressure on you. It's a hobby. It's fun. And those were my vacations.
there?
That's what I chose to do with my leisure time. If I plan on a trip, play a poker tournament. If I busted, no big deal. I got to go back to my job on Monday. Um, Now, last year has enabled me to um, change that, and I can travel a lot more, and I've been able to live that kind of amateur's dream, and I feel incredibly fortunate to do that.
Yeah, I suppose there is an element of luck to it as well. But a lot of people, a lot of ordinary working, American people and people from around the world who have jobs just like yourself and myself would have loved to have been in that position. But they were right behind you because I think the spirit that you had with it. Did you feel the support of the public and just people just like you who were really rooting for you at the time?
Oh, it's been unbelievable, the amount of support that I've received and the amount of comments that I've been sent, messages that I've been sent. During that run, I was getting that. I'd be getting message. I'd be done playing poker, and I'd check my um, social media feeds at night, and I'd be getting DMs from people around the world say, "Hey, we're watching you in Turkey, rooting for you." Just like, "Hey, this is so and so in Paris. We're pulling for you." It was crazy. It was really surreal, that aspect of it, and that's kind of continued over the last year, where I get random messages from people saying that I love poker. I loved your story. Was rooting for you. You've inspired me. And they tell me some problems that they had, and kind of that I've been an inspiration to them. And it's really been kind of heartwarming for me to kind of feel that support from people.
It sounds amazing. It reminds me a little bit of Chris Moneymaker because at the time where he won the World Series Poker Main Event, he wasn't an investment consultant, but he was an accountant. And there are similarities in terms of the math that you need to work in those professions. But also, he had a lot of everyman appeal. He appealed to the man on the street who could imagine sharing time with him as well as at the fell. Did you feel that kind of public backing? And do you think there are some similarities between yourself and Moneymaker's game?
Yeah, I mean, well, I definitely think that there's some similarities between our stories, being amateurs, having a day job, having to travel to play, not playing professionally, not playing full time. And I think there's a lot of people that you know um, can really get behind those stories, because that could be them someday. And going up against all of the pros that are playing every day, that are studying every day, that are knowledgeable about all the GTO charts that are out there, and kind of newer technology and study methods, to be able to go up against those people and succeed, does it, can be inspirational to the person that doesn't have access to that level of volume of play, and the need to have that much study. Now, I mean, I've played poker for 30 years, so I feel like not it's hard to just jump in without that kind of background, and the study methods that are out there today, and what all is available, can get people up the curve quicker without needing to spend 30 years. But having that background of playing as long as I have definitely helped. I mean, I wasn't putting in the volume day to day, but I think that experience, and really, you know, being able to have a sense of intuition of kind of where I'm at in hand, um, and kind of reading people, I think really helped.
Yeah, and sometimes, like you say, you may not have played every day for 30 years, but you play across all those ages of people and meet those different ages of the players that you're playing. And you do pick up instincts that you can then use. As a recreational player, is that maybe the sort of sole edge that a recreational player has as opposed to a professional, in that they do get time away from the felt to consider those moves and to maybe alter their game before they go back and play it again?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the game is about people and reading people and just getting a sense of kind of how they're playing and where they're coming from. I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, absolutely. In the build up to the final, I remember last year they asked you whether you were considering a coach, and you'd had people who approach you to offer coaching, but you turned them down and you invited your buddies over from home, which I think is a great way of kind of firstly involving your friends that you've known for many years and your family, of course, but also sticking with your own style, the style that got you to the final table. And that decision, obviously, you went from 9 to 2, so it must have succeeded in some sense. Just tell me some of the ways that may have helped you, as opposed to if you'd gone with Charles Cornuth or some big professional poker coach, who no doubt would have helped you in other ways. But how do you think those amateur help did that?
Well, I mean, my friends were there to support me and have fun. I wouldn't say I was getting a lot of coaching, from them. It was nice to be able to talk about some situations, especially going into the final four where, the chip stacks, the setup was really crazy there with Mizrachi having a huge chip lead, me comfortably in second place. And, I could have been put in some really sticky spots where, you're having to fold good hands just to kind of wait. And I was going through all those kinds of scenarios in my mind ahead of that. Thankfully, it played out where they busted in two hands, and I jumped up into second really quickly. But yeah, as far as the coaching, I mean, we had a day off. People were asking me when we got to the final table. I had the chip lead, and I had some people reaching out on Messenger, some local pros and so on. But it would have been hard in a day to really cram that much information in. I mean, I was exhausted after playing for 8-9 straight days,
Yeah.
and it's not like it was back in the November 9 timeframe where you had a couple months where I probably would have spent more time on looking at my opponents and rewatching how they were playing and so on. But at that point, I had complete confidence going into the final table.
Yeah.
And I had been playing really well. My intuitions were on. I kind of felt like I knew where I was at in most hands. And I had played with most of the people at the final table. I think Leo and Jared were the only two that I really hadn't played against. And I had a pretty good sense of kind of how everybody was playing. And I just kind of felt confident in that spot.
Yeah, with very good reason. It sounds like you didn't, but at any point during that final table, did you feel like an amateur? Say when there were four left, like you just mentioned. Obviously, the pressure, the ICM pressure there is, like you say, very, very impactful. The difference between fourth and second is huge, and there were, big pros in there. Kenny obviously is a big pro. He's been around for a long number of years, and Michael was steamrolling the table. Did that feel like a very pressured time for you? Or were you still able to step back?
I felt pretty calm all the way through at the final table, at the final four. I just knew I needed to play my cards and keep my strategy the way I had been. And like I said, I just kind of had this confidence that I just needed to keep playing the way I had been, and things would be fine.
Yeah, well, it worked out.
You never know what's going to happen. I mean, you can get coolered, and
Yeah, of course.
whatever happens, and that's kind of my attitude with it. Is if you get it in good and you get sucked out on, it's like there's nothing you can do about that. Why get upset and get put on tilt? It's like you just go back to work.
Yeah, there was.
I've had that.
No, go on.
I mean, I've had that question a ton about that big hand.
Yeah,
With 7 left, where I got it all in against Mizrachi with kings versus the king, and he spiked the ace on the river, and everybody's like, how did you play on from that beat. It's like I would everybody would put everybody on tilt. And the way I was looking at that was I had such a big chip lead before that hand that even after losing 75 million to him, I was second chips at that point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you
It
just
would have been a huge pot to win, but it wasn't so damaging to lose, was it, in that sense?
yeah, I mean, you just erase that and look at going forward. I'm second in chips with 7 left in the main event. Get to work.
Yeah. It reminded me a little bit, of John Racner there against Jonathan Duhamel when Duhamel had the big lead in 2010 and Racner kind of laddered all the way to second place without really getting into too many skirmishes. It kind of felt like that with the momentum behind Mizrachi at that final table was kind of insane, really. Kenny obviously led for some time after you did. But it always felt, to me, certainly from the outside in, it kind of looked like the narrative was almost fated for Mizrachi. Was that something that the other players felt at the table in any sense or not?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it changed. I mean, I was kind of being the aggressor up to that point of that big hand, and I had knocked out the 14th place player, the 12th place player, the 10th place player, the 9th place player, and then I was set to knock out Grinder at 7 and take half the chips at the table. After he won that hand and got chips, the narrative totally changed with his play style, and he was just being super aggressive.
Yeah.
And that's hard to play against because he's playing the same way whether he's got a hand or not, and you got to navigate that. And so yeah, he was catching cards, but he was playing aggressive, which was great for him. So he was getting calls in spots where he actually had it. I mean, you saw that big hand with Kenny where Kenny lost 80% of his chips or something with top pair, and against Grinder that could have been good. You never know. But
absolutely, yeah, he is known for exactly that playing style. It did kind of play into his hands once he had those chips to do it with, didn't it?
For sure. And so at that point, he started just growing his chip stack and bringing everybody down, and I kind of had maintained that second place in chips position, and I did take out Boyovich. He got short stacked, and I took him out, where I actually sucked out on him, Ace Jack versus Ace King, and busted him in 5th place as well. But other than that, Grinder was just kind of mowing down the field.
Yeah, which is good and bad, isn't it? I mean, the ending of the main event is often a mano a mano affair, and one man wins, and then that's it, really. But with the induction rather into the Poker Hall of Fame, that kind of changed everything, and there was a real circus around that. As much as I'm delighted for Mizrachi, I always thought that was a little bit harsh on you, who, there was no real recollection of what you'd done to get to that stage. Obviously, Michael's achievement was humongous and unprecedented and should be celebrated, but I did feel for you in that moment. What was that like for yourself, seeing the circus walk in, basically?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've told this to people before that the main event, it is the best and worst tournament to get second place in.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it was absolutely life-changing for me. I was able to go home and retire, spend more time with my kids, travel and play poker, have the financial freedom to do all of that. But at the same time, you are that close to poker immortality. And that it's a bitter pill to swallow at times, to know that you got that close and you did everything you could to get there, and it just it wasn't in the cards, so to speak.
Well, literally that, and the final hand as well, because it's not often you get 2 pair like that, and Grinder's got the flush. It's a horrible setup. If you've got that online, and players I'm sure will be watching this, trying to qualify for the main event this year, trying to qualify elsewhere on GG Poker, they're going to get to those points and think, how did I get so close? And then that kind of setup is what puts me out. That's happened to you in the biggest moment of all in poker, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's just poker, and it's just like any other tournament as far as how that stuff can play out. It just sucks when it's on the big stage like that. But yeah, I have zero regrets on that last hand of how I played it, and it's one of those things that's going to happen.
Absolutely. You've mentioned how you went home and retired, and you obviously you got to spend more time with your family, which is amazing. How else has your life changed in the last, I suppose, about 10 months, isn't it, since since the end of the final table? It'll be a bit longer this year, of course, with a 3 week hiatus as well. So there will be a gap between that stage and the final nine. But how's it changed your life in other ways over the last year, John? How do you look at yourself now as a poker player?
Well, I'm getting to play a lot more, which I think has changed my game for the better. When you travel to go to a tournament and it's going to be your only big tournament in half the year or several months, you kind of play it a little different. You're more conservative. You're less willing to push your small edges. Trying not to bust. You want it to last. When you're playing more tournaments, you can be more free to push those edges and bluff or semi bluff, and because there's a tournament tomorrow, and that's it's an advantage that a lot of the pros have over the amateurs, um, and it's allowed me to play a little differently for sure, but it's been amazing the difference. Like I say, I had always wanted to be able to travel more and play more poker, and I've been doing that, and I just feel like I'm living the absolute dream, the fantasy that everybody has when they sit down at the felt to have something like that happen and be able to go see places in the world and play poker. I mean, I've got to go to the Bahamas and I got to go to WSOP Europe, and I've been doing a lot of the circuit stops around different places, and I'm trying to balance. I still have 4 kids at home, and I'm trying to balance, being at home for them, and when I'm at home, I'm doing stuff with them. And my wife has been able to come with me on a few of the bigger trips. And when I'm doing some of the smaller stuff, she's at home with the kids, and it's been great.
Yeah, it sounds like you've really embraced the kind of change of lifestyle that winning that money and obviously being able to play a lot more poker has afforded you. That's fantastic. Is it something you would recommend to other players? I know there'll already be 10,000 people who are sure will play this year's main event anyway. But to someone who's on the fence, would you try to convince them to play, or would you tell them to wait until they've got a bit more experience?
Um, you know, my advice would be if it's something you really want to do, one of those kind of bucket list things. A lot of times for people, it sits on the back burner and it stays there. And I'm not telling everybody to come out and fire 10K in the main event. I'm definitely not giving that advice. But for those people that poker is their thing and it's something that they've always wanted to do, my advice would be plan ahead, start putting money aside, part of your winnings. When you have a big score, take a piece of that and set it aside so that it doesn't kill you financially when you can finally go do it. And I would recommend doing it because it's a great experience, one way or the other. It's the best tournament there is. I mean, the structure is absolutely amazing, and it's just cool that when you sit down at the table, it's such a global tournament where you look at the WSOP app, and when you sit down and look at your table, and almost every table I sat down at, there was 5 different flags represented.
Yeah.
And so you're just playing with people from all over the world. And it was fun to just sit and chat with everybody. Hey, where are you from? How long are you in Vegas? Pros and amateurs that are coming in, and just having those conversations at the table. It was amazing.
Yeah, the experience I would imagine will be slightly different this year in that players who arrive from, like you say, all over the world will sit down at the felt and probably know your face. They will probably know your name and ask you what it was like. Are you prepared for that? Does that add any more pressure, or does it take it away? Does it make it a more fun experience for you?
That's been happening a lot. I mean, obviously, I get recognized, and especially with the WSOP app, you can just look up everybody at your table and look at their history. So I get asked a ton, and I embrace that. I know that I'm the lucky one that got to experience that run that everybody dreams about. And for some reason I was picked, and so I have embraced kind of sharing that with people that are interested and that want to talk about it. And so I'm happy to have those conversations. It's still fun for me. It'll never get old.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to be every year at the World Series. You're going to be quite a draw in terms of speaking with people, and as an ambassador of the game, you do have that immortality. I know that the winner gets that on their own merit for that particular moment, but I feel like Mizrachi kind of already has that. He's well known in the game. He's already an ambassador for GG Poker. He's won countless titles in the game, whereas you really achieved what a lot of people might have considered impossible before that event. When Chris Moneymaker won the main event, there were just over 800 people playing. There are now just under 10,000 people playing in the year that you just won $6 million. So it's a very different game now, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and it's great to see. I mean, and I think it will continue to grow. We will get over 10,000 people this year in my mind. And I mean, I've talked to many people that have come up to me and said, "Hey, you've inspired me. I'm going to take a shot this year." And so maybe a few more people because of what I did last year.
Wow, I love that. The Wasnock effect. Many years after Chris Moneymaker had a huge effect on the amateur ranks of poker, the people who truly love the game and have played it like you have, John, for 30 years. I hope you inspire the next generation to do the same as you.
I'll keep trying.
We know you will, and we'll be following you here on Legal US Poker Science. Thank you so much for your time, John, and very best of luck at this year's World Series of Poker.
Thanks, Paul.